Okay. Well, for those that may have missed it in the beginning, if you don't mind entering your name and your location in the chat, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the afternoon virtual, what was this, military partnership, 4-H military partnership virtual conference. This afternoon, I'm pleased to present two of our partners up here in the Department of War, Lieutenant Colonel Wade and Lieutenant Colonel Dansby. They're going to be talking with us about how to support Guard and Reserve, our geographically dispersed. So this is about mobilizing the community, 4-H supporting Guard and Reserve youth. To give everybody a better understanding of the unique realities of geographically dispersed military connected youth. We hope today that you're going to learn strategies for connecting with the Guard and Reserve programs to actively include youth in local 4-H programs and clubs, camps, projects, and activities, as well as develop relationships with family program staff. So to get us started, I want to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Alicia Dansby. She is the program manager for Headquarters Army Reserve Command. Her job is to leverage military, community, and national resources to help meet the needs of families wherever they reside. She coordinates directly with the Department of War and Army youth serving organizations to ensure families receive essential services. And she's been in this role since October of 2023. So, ma'am, this is over to you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. As they said, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Alicia Dansby with the Army Reserve. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the box. I will try and pay attention and answer as we go. But if I don't see it, I promise I'll get back to you. Next slide.
Okay, I promise, Harriet, I am hitting the next slide button. There we go. All right. Now I got it, Lisa.
So as you can see, roughly over 2 million children currently have a parent that serves in the military. Approximately 70% of those military families live in civilian communities. So right there, you see that it is a need to have a good foundation of how can we serve these military families living in civilian communities. And when you have a child living in a civilian community, it does remove that youth from critical systems that are provided on base. Next slide. All right, so this is just a little bit of a definition for what geographically dispersed youth are. That is what we call someone when they're not living on base or near base. So you can see the comparison there. And I did use active duty, although I do realize that active duty families also may be geographically dispersed at times. And according to Military One Source, geographically dispersed means that the family is not living on or immediately adjacent to the military installation where the service member is assigned. Instead, they reside in civilian communities that may be several miles, towns, or even cities away from the base. So we have to realize that civilians lack the robust system for tracking military ties in students, and that makes the student invisible. So we have to try and figure out how to mirror those two things together, how to mirror the civilian side as well as the military side. Next slide. All right, so as you can see, a lot of when you live on base, you have the DOD EA schools, you have base youth center, but geographically dispersed youth don't have that. And evidence shows that for military children, friendships with other military children and participation in military sponsored activities can be beneficial for their well-being. Unfortunately, children of the Reserve, National Guard, and even some active duty members may have few opportunities for those face-to-face interactions with others who would have a basic shared understanding of life as a military dependent. So once again, our big goal is to figure out how can we put those two things together. Next slide. All right, so this is just, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Army Reserve makeup so you can kind of understand how we are made up. So we have a head family programs, we have a headquarters, and then we have four readiness divisions that do all four of the all four they do parts of the continental US. Then we have mission support commands that do Europe, Asia, and then Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, American Samoa, and the Mariana Islands. Next slide. And then you can see the states that our readiness divisions compose of. We do have people who work all of those states in those divisions. Some of them have to double up, triple up even, but we have somebody that covers all of those states. So if you if you if you are a 4-H coordinator and you want to get in touch with a family programs person, you can always go to our website, which will be at the end of this, and it will give you the state and the person whom to contact. Next slide. So this is kind of telling you what the 4-H framework is, and I'm going to mirror that to how it can help with Reserve and National Guard kids. So of course, the 4-H framework is belonging, mastery, independence. Next slide. All right, so belonging. You want to make sure that you establish an environment where they do not have to explain what military terms mean. And you want to also have a dedicated time, perhaps where all of your military youth can get together and talk about everything that they're going through. That could either be virtual or in person. And next slide. Mastery. So the thing about mastery is you want to introduce hands-on projects that encourage emotional expression. That could be like photography, journaling, woodworking, because you want the child to have an outlet, especially if like their parent is deployed or mobilized. And coping kits is a good way to do that. And what a coping kit is this collection of tools and strategies to help manage stress and challenging situations. And like what can go in the coping kit is like stress balls, fidget toys, common sense. You know, you can put a little journal in there so they can journal when they having a hard time. Small calendar, they can keep important dates like, okay, you know, it's 6 months before my parent comes home. It's 2 weeks before my parent comes home. Those kind of things. You want to make sure that you emphasize that the kit is unique to the child needs and preferences. And you want to have them try to include at least one item for each sense. So something for touch, something for sight, something for smell, something for hearing, and something for taste if it makes sense and it's safe, because you don't want them to put something that will rot in the box. Next slide. Independence. You want to have times when the youth can explain to non-military youth what their lifestyle is like, and also to non-military adults, because a lot of times adults who have not dealt with the military also don't understand what the youth are going to. This will help them. This will help teach them advocacy as well as agency. And you can design service projects that will bridge the civilian and the community and the military worlds, perhaps like volunteering at a local VA or sending care packages to deployed soldiers. This will help them realize that the community that they reside in has value. Next slide. So how to connect. So I would say the biggest thing is on your enrollment form, do you have a question stating, are you military affiliated? If so, how? Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it Army, Reserve, regular Army, Army National Guard? That way you can always tell, okay, yes, this child is military affiliated. And also you want to make sure that you get out and distribute flyers directly to family program staff. As I said earlier, they're in each state. You know, you can go on our website and find the person you're looking for, as well as each reserve unit should have a family readiness group. That's also a good source to get out and talk to the families about your program as well. And then partner with school counselors to possibly identify any children in very rural areas that could benefit from the 4-H who are also military affiliated, because we do have a lot of families that live in rural areas who definitely probably could benefit from 4-H affiliation. So next slide. All right, so in conclusion, just remember that by actively recognizing geographically dispersed military students, understanding their unique mobility and deployment stresses, and fostering a supportive school climate, you can convert their isolation into lifelong resilience. Also, just remember that 4-H can transfer a military child's geo-dispersed experience because they can help with intake processes, establishing protective peer spaces, and applying youth development principles. So, any questions? And those are my references there.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Dansby. I'm going to leave this last slide up on the screen for just a second while Harriet checks to see if you've got any questions in the chat, or if our participant audience is small enough that maybe they can come off mute. I don't know if we have that capability.
Avenues that you all have taken in order to
I don't see any questions in the chat, Diana, but I'm curious.
So we just like to give those for situations.
To know, Lieutenant Colonel Dansby, if
Leadership
there
to
are
know
specific
how Oregon stands
events or
up to
activities that you're aware of that have been especially successful with 4-H and with the reserve folks. You're on mute. I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Good.
I don't know any specific off the top of my head. I know that some of our RDs do partner with the 4-H, but I don't know any events off the top of my head that they have done that's successful.
when we were able.
You guys are good. Okay, my apologies. Let's try to come off mute, and I kept spinning the slide, so apologies to that. Lieutenant Colonel Dansby, since we don't have any questions just yet, I wanted to ask you if you could go back, and this is really for my benefit as well as it is for everyone's. So you've got these RDs, and is there a way to reach through the website that you spoke of, a way to reach the family programs person so that they can talk to them directly if they're in their state? Okay, you have to come off mute one more time.
Sorry, I keep forgetting I put myself on mute. So where it says the Army Reserve Family Programs portal, that is our website. That website will take you to the specific person in the RD that is for that state.
Questions
And
about
so
your
that's how you can
QRS.
reach them.
We also
Okay,
go in
great.
detail like they
And
want to know
maybe what we
how
can
long
do
this
is we can take our 4-H military partnership list and send that to you so that you can send it out, and maybe there's some way that we can meet in the middle.
Yep, I have the list. I asked for
Okay.
that support the other day, so I can
Oh,
send
very
it out,
good.
no problem.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions before we transition over to Lieutenant Colonel Wade?
When we launch MCCYM Plus in Oregon, sometimes we have providers
All
that may reach out to.
You guys are gonna check out my really cool skills here and see if I can get to the next presentation, which would have been smart for me to upload.
State QRIS.
Put them
If they
together.
have questions.
Okay.
Our role is not to answer questions on behalf.
So Lieutenant Colonel Wade is the Soldier and Family Support Branch Chief for the Army National Guard G1 in the National Guard Bureau, and he's here in Arlington, Virginia. Lieutenant Colonel Wade leads a team that delivers comprehensive and timely support to service members, their families, and survivors of the 54 states, territories, and District of Columbia through the execution of military funeral honors, casualty operations, survivor outreach services, the drug demand reduction program, and child and youth services, and the DEERS Project Office. And all of that is to preserve combat readiness and quality of life across the force. He began this role just this past June of this newly formed branch in the Army National Guard G1. So let me bring your slides up.
That particular document. Any questions thus far?
Look at me go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. And again,
there we go. Look, Harriet's giving me the nod. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Lieutenant Colonel Wade, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying their day. I won't take a lot of your time, but I do think this is a very important thing that we need to talk about. So look forward to speaking with you all, especially if you have questions at the end. Feel free. Colonel Dansby, I appreciate you giving me a good lead in because the things that we're talking about marry, but I won't have to repeat some of the great information that you've given. So I will try and refrain from doing so. All right, slide. This is the Army National Guard Child and Youth Services and how we reach out to our youth. We do it through the program with multiple partners, which you will see later on, and 4-H is one of our partners. So we will jump right in. All right, slide. So this is our agenda here. We're going to talk about the overview. I'll talk about some of the services and eligibility that dictate the programs, the impact of our program, some of the national partnerships, and then the keys to success and how we've been able to make the program work best for our families in their dispersed locations. Slide. So the mission of the Army National Guard Child and Youth Services Program is to promote and sustain quality of life and also that resiliency factor for dependent children and youth by providing secure, timely, flexible, high quality support services and enrichment programs. The height of this, if you can think of it, is usually during a deployment, and most current for most of us who have lived this that may or may not have military children, it would be COVID. One of those examples is how the dispersion of the kids, everybody's isolated. How do you reach them? We'll discuss some of those things later, but that is what this program's focus is on, is being able to reach our youth, no matter where, no matter when, but to give them an opportunity to tie into both community service, and also all learning applications through STEM and other learning applications. Slide. So service and eligibility, we go from 6 to 18. We do have very tiny tots, 1 through 5. So there are some programs for them, but they're very limited. But we do have the youth services, which National Guard Teen Panel, we have a state teen panel. We also have the regional symposiums that those teens go to. We have the Teen Leadership Forum. We also have summer camps, our Yellow Ribbon Support Program, and then the school and community outreach, which ties into the connectivity we have with all the different systems, programs, and organizations like 4-H. The actively serving National Guard members, both full-time and traditional soldiers, are eligible for the program. Slide. This is our impact from FY24. So basically 63,000 and over military youth are served in our program. 32,000 of those are 6 to 12, and then the other almost 15,000 are your 13 to 18, our teens. Within that program, we've also got 5,000, almost 6,000 volunteers. We have 2,600 or over that have service programs that we provide for the children and youth. And then we've also given over 143,000 volunteer hours. If you look down there, there's also a couple of more stats down at the bottom. We've got a 10% increase in our 13 to 18-year-olds over the last year and a half. Another 10.3% increase in our 6 to 18-year-olds at our Yellow Ribbon events, which is huge because the Yellow Ribbon events is what's supporting the families when they come back from the deployments. And if any of you have ever been part of that deployment cycle, you know how important it is for reintegration, mostly with the kids. On a personal note, I know with my daughter, she wouldn't talk while I was deployed. She went almost mute, like she would barely say a word. And when I got back, it was so funny. During the time I was gone, I guess let me start there. She would watch this cartoon show that she and I watched on Netflix, and she would watch it over and over and over again. And then when Dad got back home, she came out of her shell, and we couldn't get her to stop talking afterwards. So just those types of integration events, those types of spending that weekend at a 4-H camp site, and re-involving yourself in the family dynamic as a soldier goes unmeasurable, it has a multiplicity of benefits for the family. And then last but not least, we had an 8% increase in our 6 to 12-year-olds at the symposiums, which is a leadership opportunity for the younger children to be able to kind of grow into those leadership roles, those community outreach programs. They kind of find their voice, they find the things that they like, they get with other military kids. And so it gives them a home and a place that they can be comfortable in to be themselves, and have people with like situations that they can share that time with. And that's something that is completely invaluable, especially when you start talking about military youth that move multiple times in a career. It's very hard to make friendships. It's very hard to continue friendships. Now with cell phones, it makes it a little bit easier, but there's still that maintenance that you have to do with those children to give them that opportunity. And those are some of the ways by which we do so. Slide. Now, here are our national partners. If you look, 4-H is up top. We've got Boys and Girls Club of America. We do an annual conference with them. We've got virtual lab schools where we do training for care providers. We've also got our military kids. Those are grants to school kids or school age kids, should I say, excuse me, for deployed parents. We've also got tutor.com, which offers assistance for kids to go in and get tutoring online, because once you're dispersed, obviously there may not be a facility near you that you can do those things. So we offer these types of programs for kids so that they can still receive some of the benefits that an active duty child would receive, but in the dispersed scenario. And then there's Anchor for Life down there, which are toolkits that have a plethora of opportunities for kids at all ages to learn at their particular learning age, and then step above to try and get them ahead for school across summertime, going into each school year. The partnerships we have with the 4-H, you can see down there the soldiers pulling against the kids. That's one of the events. For me personally, I'm from Georgia, so we did a lot of these events at Rock Eagle 4-H Club site, and I remember me and another dad up on the high wire ropes, and one of the things we had to do was we had to balance. So if you can imagine two grown men with their hands out put together and walking up separating wires that spread further and further the longer you go. And we did it pretty good. We actually won the competition, but if you can imagine the amount of sweat and grunts that were coming out of there, are just some of the small things that we had going on. And with that, we also had the kids there, and it was an amazing event because you spend that weekend with other families. Going through the same situation you're going through. So it builds that camaraderie there. My kids were able to tie into families that we still to the day, even though my daughter's now 21. She's now one of the leaders in some of our family programs in Georgia, but she was able to meet some of the kids that she was in a pool with, with floaties, and they're hanging out, and now they still talk. They still have those relationships. And so the value of that program is impeccable. And like I say, it's just immeasurable. But those type of events is how we keep our kids involved, but then also keep them tied in to the realities of a military life that doesn't include a base or installation. Slide. Here are some of the keys to success that we have. So if you're open and frequent communication, the critical components of that partnership for us is the 4-H leadership and being in communication with them on a constant. We talk about the strategic goals. We go over all the opportunities that we'll have throughout the year to be able to cross paths, interject opportunities for families, interject opportunities for leadership to plan for the future, and then that integration for those local 4-H leaders in our community. Because being dispersed, you have so many miles between you and the next potential meet. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of endeavors of folks to give volunteer time. It takes a lot of effort just to make sure that we offer the kids as much as we can. We make it affordable for the families. We make it the capability for the kids to learn, to dig into STEM, to dig into STEAM, the arts, be able to go to a club and get on a kayak or a canoe, to learn how to bake or cook. All those things are valuable and important, and we have to find a way to do so. And 4-H is a major portion of how we do that. We blend the Army National Guard's focus on our youth resiliency. That in itself is a huge part because just like any military kid, there's a sense of resiliency that you must have just based on the sheer deployment cycles of parents and the training cycles that we face. But then you go into a further aspect of it when you start talking moving from school to school or not having the same group of friends on a consistent basis due to new mission changes or new positions that mom and dad get that move you. Or in some cases, if you're lucky enough to stay in the same community for a little while, you get embedded and then you have to move towards the end of their career. And then so that in itself is another challenge. So those varying challenges, being able to establish those connections to the community and given those opportunities for the children, it's one that we look forward to consistently. The resiliency piece is awesome because we do it through not just your traditional resiliency, right? It's not just, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about what you're feeling and how things are going. We go get kids out and they are doing everything from baking cakes to flying kites to shooting rockets, kayaking, any kind of team building summer camp you can think of. So it cultivates not just their leadership styles, but it gives them confidence to be able uh, to push through day to day challenges, but also yet they also learn how to communicate. They learn how to deal with different folks from different places. They learn how to um, some of them are entrepreneurs, for instance. Some of them learn how to be creative. They become more artistic. They go and they dig into their bag and they find out that they're able to work on computers or they're able to build robots. So there's several opportunities that come out of these things that don't just build a traditional kid, but it builds a kid with resilience. And then your local community integration is huge because not only are you strengthening the growth of the program. Obviously, that's what we really want to do, but you're also building leaders within the program, and those kids are reaching out to other kids and they're bringing kids into the fold that may not know about some of these opportunities, or they may be bashful, they may be shy. So you have this leadership. And it comes in an innate ability, and we've all been around kids. There's no stranger amongst kids, right? So if you got a toy and I like your toy, I can walk over and we can talk about said toy. And it's kind of that mentality, I'm dealing with a challenge, you're dealing with a challenge, hey, let's talk about it. And so it builds those camaraderie moments, those moments of growth, and yet that leadership and that confidence builds subtly in each kid. And then sustain scalability, that's just establishing a structured repeatable program, something that we can mimic consistently to help both with the child's growth as an individual and then also in their community and how they tie into their community and how they're able to come back later as senior leaders within the same programs and partake in building the next generation of leaders and youth. Slide. Here's some of the ways we apply it. We do outreach to geographically dispersed kids through Camp in a Box. So if it's exactly what you think it is activities and things of programs and projects that they can do throughout their time. Like I said, COVID was a huge portion of this thing when we couldn't come together, we couldn't have the kids. So they would actually meet virtually and they would build rockets together virtually. And so the instructions were all going on. They'd all be talking kind of like we're doing right now, and they would go outside and they would fire their rockets up, whether it be the ones with the soda bottles and you're just doing it through pressure, or if we're shooting actual rockets. You can use the camp facilities as well at low to no cost in the local areas. Like I said, we did a lot of things at Rock Eagle. And then you have your day and overnight camp partnerships that we also have. And so kids learn how to camp, they learn how to build fires, they learn how to roast marshmallows, or they go out and they tell stories in the nighttime. But those are all some of the camp supports that we have. If you look at some of the event support, we start getting into the yellow ribbon events. We also have the month of military child events. We do back to school, so they get book bags and supplies, that sort of thing. And then we have our teen panel volunteers at the 4-H events as well. And the teen panel are our senior kids coming back and giving back to the community through the 4-H program, as well as being leaders in the community. They're also mentors for the younger children. So it gives an opportunity to go full circle. We start you young and we bring you all the way up to adulthood, and then we bring you back so that you can feed back into the community in which you grew up in. Some of the life skills that we are able to actually reach. We got teaching health and healthy eating and cooking habits. As I said before, we have some baking classes, things of that nature. You go into STEM when you start talking science and art programming with STEAM. Children who, and STEAM is a big one because a lot of times we forget about the arts. You know, everybody wants math, they want science, but we forget that there are artists out there too. And what would the world be without art, right? Just think about the cars in the parking lot. They look like block cars if we didn't have artists. So um, also leadership skill building. That's a huge one because those life skills are they stick with you forever. They're immeasurable and they're infinite, right? As you begin to build your leadership skills, you tend to tie on. You learn more from different leaders, and you just make that bag bigger as you go, so your toolkit becomes better. But those are just a few of the things that we're able to offer to our children and some of the success stories. And if you look at that photo over there, that's from our Louisiana National Guard, CYS, and 4-H collaboration over there for STEM. Slide. So this is closing out. This is of the Florida National Guard in a partnership with local 4-H, where they're properly and respectfully retiring unserviced American flags. Huge deal, especially being a service member. You want to do it in the most respectful way, and these children are learning an invaluable lesson. This is the one time and only time that we actually will retire a flag in this manner. And so it gives them a sense of loyalty, a sense of ownership, and a sense of understanding of what mom and dad actually fight for while they're in the uniform. So it has a multiplicity of lessons that go along with it. And to see them doing this, it is a heartfelt moment. At the same time, it's a very endearing moment. So with that, I will open up for questions. I hope I gave you some insight into some of the things we were able to do. This is the contact information for my current team within the CYS program. Feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have any questions or concerns, or even just want to know best practices. We'd be glad to help you and love to hear from you.
Harriet, did it look like we had any questions posted in the chat?
State website, we have the Spark
No?
website. Any website.
Would any of our participants like to come off mute and just ask your question directly to Lieutenant Colonel Wade? And now we've got Lieutenant Colonel Dansby back on the screen.
It is the state's choice how you want to publicly announce. You can do it radio.
I think, thank you both for presenting. I think one of the last things you had something, Lieutenant Colonel Wade, on one of your last slides, and it was about force multiplier. And I don't think we can say that enough in what these partnerships do for us, right? Because I know I worked on a youth center on Andrews Air Force Base, but we couldn't do it all ourselves. So we had to count on the community. And then that's where the 4-H partnership comes in. But it's more critical for you all, right? Because you're not on an installation. You're out in the community everywhere. And Colonel Dansby mentioned, active duty. We need to think about the recruiters that are out in the field and they're active duty and they're out there recruiting, but they're not located near an installation. They need to be near the community where they're out recruiting. And so I think that was a good final point to just sort of bring home to us. I appreciate you doing that. Jennifer Wade, I appreciate you sharing some of your personal stories. And I really think that that just helps to paint the picture. The photos are great, the words are great, but hearing the personal stories, and now I need to meet your little girl. So that was something else. I did wonder though about the tug of war photograph that you had. It looked like the adults on the left-hand side, the soldiers were having quite a hard time against those young people on the right-hand side. So
Those kids
I
are
don't
pretty
know.
strong. You know, they eat pretty good since we teach them how to eat healthy in the program. So I guess they've been eating their vegetables because they gave them a run for their money.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Role and responsibility of
Um,
every single stakeholder.
Well, perhaps I can ask a question of both of you because this is something that is very recent. I think since the end of July, perhaps, that the Army has a new policy now that it cut off all of your social media, your access to your community. And our 4-H partners that are on here may not be aware of that. And, you know, we learned during Joint Service Team Council and other team leadership events, you know, they're not out there reading the newspaper and looking for a flyer posted in a facility, right? That's how they get their information. And that's how families get their information. So perhaps you can talk with us a little bit, because we do have a few minutes, talk to us about what that impact is and how maybe the 4-H community, you know, it almost feels like to me, we, you know, both sides have to meet in the middle, but now maybe more so because you guys just don't have the resources. Maybe they'll loosen the reins at some point. But right now, you're limited in how you can reach the communities. Would you guys like to speak to that?
What I tell the states is that typically it takes about 2-3 months based on how we're
Colonel
sharing our
Gansby, would you like to go
data.
first, or you want me to
Data
jump in
in,
there?
data out. So as they're sharing, they're provided
So
with us,
for
and
us,
we
I
put
think
them
one of
in
the
our
things we're trying to do
system, and
now
we
is we're
start
going to lean
tracking how
towards
they're
each one of our
participating.
54 states and
We
territories
will, it will
getting
take about
a
2 or
individual site for the program. That in itself will at least give us a point of connectivity that can be consistent. We have a national site that connects to all the state sites. So we're going back to a traditional route of communication. We're going to have to do the flyers thing, you know, putting them in positions where we're at armories and where families are going. Obviously, we won't be canvassing any neighborhoods, but just trying to find ways to get out there again and promote what we're doing through the more digital means, being a traditional website. So the other thing we're looking at doing now is trying to do word of mouth, because that's always the best way to communicate and pass information. So passing it to community leaders, having them speak up about it, that's another way of doing so. So those partnerships become that much more crucial and that much more valuable because that constant communication, those opportunities to put that little information out there, and having someone walk by someone at a grocery store or at a town hall or some kind of meeting and say, hey, by the way, did you hear about what was going on with the guard kids? You know, they got this going on, that going on. Is it the most effective way? Obviously, we'd love to have our social media, but being that we don't right now, we're just going to go back to grassroots and community, you know, lean on our community because that's what's got us this far, and that's where we all come from. So now it's even more impactful and important for us to tie in that way.
So we are kind of doing the same thing, going back to paper. We are trying to discuss with our main page to get maybe a little corner so that we can put stuff in that families can see. We do still have our website, so we're gonna beef up our website as well and try and make sure we put stuff on our website more than we were, because before we were putting it more on the social media than the website, but now we only have the website to tell people to refer to. So we're trying to make sure we get everything on the website front and center so people can see it the minute they click on the website and not have to go dig for it. But yeah, it's a hard thing because you saw how social media was being utilized, and the families would ask questions on the social media sites and you would get leverage from it. So we're still in like the beginning stages of trying to figure out how best to leverage just a few things we have left.
national accrediting.
Thank you for sharing that. And Christina, thanks for letting us know that we've got the background interference coming in. You know, it's great coming back to the office because you've got great collaborations. But when you're having 3 meetings all at once, you can't help but it bleed over. And so apologies to that. Perhaps I want to just put a challenge out if I can to our 4-H community is that as you know, to reach out and find who your guard or reserve contact is in your state and you know feed your social information to them that if they get a website up and running or if they can put it on a bulletin board, goodness gracious, with a QR code that'll link them back to your 4-H clubs and your 4-H organizations, you know, maybe the parents will take hold to that. This has been quite the challenge. It's not just for the Guard and the Reserve, by the way, it's the entire Department of the Army. And so I think it's very new. As I said, they're trying to navigate it. And so any way that we can ask our 4-H partners to step forward and help us through that, that would be great because we would hate to see our families not participate because they don't have access to the information anymore.
Already have the data reporting.
Diana, I would throw in our being here in North Carolina, Christy, who mentioned that we have guard kids in 98 of our 100 counties. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. One of the cool things that Christy does is share with me her newsletter that she does for the state. And I would be curious to know, is there a way that folks can request to get on that distribution list if they're not already on it? Is there an easy way for folks to link in and make that request, or how can we make that happen? One of the challenges we have from the 4-H side of the house is that we can't find those kids. We're out there beating the bushes trying to find them, and so anything that we can do that gets a way for the families to contact us is really important for us.
Harry,
Going on in your state.
can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can send you the link to get on our mailing list and for any of your agents to get on our mailing list. But if you guys want something added to our newsletter, we'd be more than happy to add it into the newsletter, give you a little section that we can do that because we have a distribution list that goes to anybody in the National Guard that has registered to receive it.
That is awesome. And I'm assuming that's the way it works in most states, that there's an opportunity if we can connect to whoever their Christie is, their state families person, that they can get on that list and hopefully get access to posting things in the newsletter, which I realize is still not social media, but it's another way that we can get our word out. So
I would
Absolutely.
definitely say if you guys can reach out to the states, those Joint Force headquarters locations all have someone that does child youth services and family programs. And if you can tie in with them, those partnerships are invaluable because it gives us another road to getting communication out. Even if it's through the partnerships, it helps because every little bit ties into something bigger. So definitely appreciate any kind of activity you all can add to that.
There's a great comment from Louisiana I see in the chat. You know, I think this is just the start of continuing to have this conversation. We needed to put it out there, particularly around this need to reach families and how we've become a little bit hamstrung with that. But I'm sure between the Military Partnership Working Group and the Joint Service, the Youth Programs Working Group, if we can share that information going in both directions, that maybe we can get it all the way down to the lowest level, which is where it needs to happen. I mean, we can't do it up here. It's going to have to happen down there. Well, I think we're coming up on time, and I appreciate Christy and Christina both putting some comments there in the chat. I'm pretty sure this session is being recorded along with the other ones. So thank you for choosing this session. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Wade and Lieutenant Colonel Dansby, first of all, for your service. And second of all, for helping us better understand your community and helping us to reach them and to support them. So thank you. I think
Thank
that'll
you all
do
for
it
having
for
us.
us. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.